Hey, what's up, fellas? Wednesday morning. Hope you're all off to a good start this week. I know I am. We've had two good days. Monday and Tuesday, got a lot of work done. Been doing a few bush jobs here and there, including one-time bush job that I was ended up getting $700 for, which is good. It only took us a couple hours. I was expecting $600, where the lady added $100 to it, so that's always good when customer appreciates your work and adds a little extra. So yeah, I was proud of that, obviously, and fertilized the Brooks, big HOA account Monday, and again, had a solid day yesterday as well, so that's good. But yeah, we're in two trucks today. I'm gonna have Justin and JR in the truck together most of the day, and I'll be by myself. Luckily, I don't have a lot of errands to run necessarily, so I'll be in the money, right away, getting jobs knocked out. I got to fertilize one or two, but mainly be mowing. So yeah, JR be in the truck knocking out jobs. After we meet up, we're gonna meet up after we gas up at the first one, which is kind of close by, a commercial site, and knock it out real quick together, and then we'll split up from there and go our separate ways and knock several yards out. I don't know if you can see, the pavement's a little wet. There was a lot of big storms up in North Alabama last night. The Futurecast was showing a big line forming and coming through here. Well, luckily that didn't transpire. We got a little bit of rain about an hour or so ago, but not a whole lot at all, just enough to wet the pavement. I was kind of hoping it rained a little more just to water that fertilizer in that I mentioned earlier, but that's all right. You always worry about if it rains a lot overnight, it's going to be muddy, especially in the morning, or damp and real wet in certain yards and that kind of thing. So yeah, lucky that won't be the case. I did go ahead, and this is part of the planning and scheduling, how you got to think. When it comes to the weather, I went ahead and planned to do some weedy rental property yards this morning, because I was anticipating that rain, which again didn't come other than just a little bit. So that was kind of my thinking, but it'll work out. Those yards typically go pretty fast. We get through them pretty quick. So we'll be downtown Auburn to start today, knocking out some of those rental properties, and then we'll go elsewhere. We'll generally be in the same side of town in most of the day. So yeah, I'm hoping actually to get some yards done kind of close to my house, after lunch, and I may have Justin meet up with me afterwards after they finish their list to help me finish some, around my house, that kind of thing. But anyway, hey, listen, y'all, I'm gonna have a good day. I hope y'all are as well. I got a good clip, by the way. I meant to mention that. Now I'll let you go. We'll talk some more later, but we're mainly gonna be talking about deck wheels on the mower. And I didn't mention in the clip itself, I did it Sunday. It's about 6-7 minutes long. I thought about going ahead and posting it, but man, Doc mentioned the fact that, it's got to be over a certain length for it to be monetized or whatever. So I feel like this has a chance to maybe be a good video. You never know. But yeah, I wanted to bring up the fact in terms of the deck wheels, something I didn't mention in the clip that you'll see later, is obviously the Mower brand and the Mower top, plays a part. I'm curious, those stand-on mowers, guys, Eddie, some of you guys that use the stand-on stock primarily, do they wear out as fast as sit-downs? I've always been curious about that. I don't think they do they? Do the deck wheels on stand-on mowers wear down as fast as they seem to do on sit-downs? Just curious about that. Y'all let me know. That's the point I was thinking of after the fact and didn't get it in, so I wanted to bring that up. But yeah, you'll see that particular clip later today. And I'm giving some thoughts on deck wheels and whether I feel like they're useful or not. That kind of thing. Just thought it'd be interesting to discuss and talk about. But anyway, hey, listen, guys, off to get started. I hope you're having a great week. Talk to you soon. What's up, fellas? Hope y'all doing well. So yeah, I doubt I'll do a end of the video clip talking about the day. I know I'm off to a good start, and so are the guys. Just checked in with them. They're doing well. So I've already done about 10 yards I've mowed, and I fertilized the yard. It's about 1 o'clock now, so I'm getting ready to head Opelika. When Justin and JR get done with their list, if there's time, and they should have time, I'll have them meet up with me and knock out some more, where I'll be at in Opelika, kind of close to my house. So that's kind of the thinking there. All in all, we should do well over 30, maybe close to 35 yards today. So that's great. Proud of the guys working hard. It feels good outside too. I want to give y'all an update, and before I give you the update on the quotes, I've gotten a couple quotes, including a quote from a guy that I talked to earlier, who I'll probably honestly end up going with, the way it sounds right now. I'm gonna put that clip that I did Sunday talking about the deck wheels and whether I think they're important or not, and I also mentioned the fact, talking about if you should order them from Amazon, because they're obviously cheaper than the OEM version of the deck wheels. I just got done talking with Chandler over at Ace, and need to make sure I can get some more. Obviously, I prefer the OEM versions. We'll talk more about that later. Yeah, a good day so far. Feels good out here too, but I wanted to update y'all on the whole land clearing situation. And I had a couple of questions. I appreciate Scott over at J&L, I think it's the name of his lawn care company. He was, we were going back and forth in the comments, and I was asking him questions. He said he's involved with land clearing, or has been doing it for a little while, so obviously he knows stuff. And I was asking him questions in terms of how important it is to do a good job. I mean, you know what I mean? Other than just the simple fact, the main thing I want is just basically just having all the trees and the brush obviously taken off, all the vegetation clear cut and taken off. I mean, does it need to be done a certain kind of way? And I was worried about the lack of experience my buddy Brad has. He had quoted me the $25,000, and he's been doing it a few years. So that was something that I've been kind of thinking about and kind of worried about. He did mention the fact that he would separate some of the oak and the pine trees if I wanted them, and just set them off to the side. So that was good. That's good, I prefer that to be the case. Now, I got another quote Sunday from a guy that's got a lot more experience, has got a really good reputation, been doing it for a few decades, and he quoted me $27,500. So obviously a little bit more expensive, but this guy's been doing it a long time, and I know for sure that he would do a good job, right? More so than with Brad, who hadn't really been doing it very long. So I got to thinking about it. Should I go with a guy maybe it costs a little more, but I know would do it right, not have any issues, or should I go with Brad and someone I know decent, not real well. It's not like we're best buddies, I just met him about a year ago, but he's a nice guy, and I would like to get him some business, but at the end of the day, I got to do what's right and best for me. And the guy with the experience told me he wouldn't want to fool with separating the oak trees and all that. They're trying to get in and out as quickly as possible. It just doesn't make sense for him and his crew to do that. He'll come in and get the logs that he feels like he can take to the mill or whatever, and just burn, just clear everything else out and burn the rest, right, and scrape it a little bit, all that kind of stuff, whatever it is they do. Not really sure. But he said he didn't really want to worry about doing that. And that's cool. That's fine. But I talked to a guy this morning who, Blake, the civil engineer, recommended me call. And he's fairly young. He's a couple years younger than I am, 37. And we got to talking, and he agreed that he would do it for 24. So he's doing it a little bit cheaper than Brad. And this guy's got good reputation as well. He's got the experience, he's got the know-how. He's actually involved, he's going to be involved in a project fairly close by next month. So he's telling me he could get on it in June and knock it out in June if I decide to go with him, which is a good thing. That actually, the fact that he's got a project going on relatively close by, it'd save him, or it would allow him to do it a little bit cheaper in terms of moving his equipment to my site, to the next, that kind of thing. Not really sure, but he asked me if I could make my decision relatively soon. That way he can go ahead and get prepared to knock the job out. So that's good. So obviously he's doing a little bit cheaper, $24,000. And he told me he'd be willing to separate some of the logs, some of the oak logs and the pine logs. Not a lot. I told him maybe 10 or 15 trunk size pieces for the water oak or the oaks that may be on site, and 10 to 15 pine logs that I can mill later. And he said he was fine with that. He just asked me that I would, in the process of them getting it done, maybe in the afternoon when I get done, I can come by and limb up the trees that I want, and they'll just move the log pieces out of the way where I ask them to set it for the time being, right? So yeah, I'm more or less probably gonna go with him. I'm gonna give Brad a call and just talk to him just to let him know what's going on. So that's my thinking now. I'm gonna go with Matt because he's got experience. He's got the equipment too. By the way, I mentioned the fact that Brad would have to rent out an excavator. And I think one of the guys in the comments, I'm not sure who it was, I can't remember, mentioned the fact that you want to go with a company that's got the equipment on hand, because obviously that just tells you they got more experience and know-how. And Matt was telling me he's got all the dozers and he's got 30-ton excavators, this, that, and the other. So he's got plenty of equipment to do the job and do it efficiently. So that was something somebody brought up to me. You would rather go with a crew or a group that has the equipment to do the job. So right now, guys, I'm leaning towards going with Matt. I told him I'd let him know over the weekend for sure, but I'm leaning towards going to him. A little bit cheaper price, and he's got the experience to do a really good job, which I don't want to have to worry about having any issues once I start maybe building a building or two. You know what I mean? It costs me more money if the job isn't done right. So that's kind of my thinking there. Yeah, that's my thinking. So that's probably what I'm going to go with. Y'all let me know what you think on that. Again, appreciate the man in the comments, conversing with me yesterday from the video Sunday, giving me some advice and that kind of thing. So, yeah, just thought I'd let y'all know on that. Y'all let me know what you think on that whole situation. I feel like I'm making a good choice going the more experienced operator, and obviously cheaper, and the fact that they will separate some of the logs for me to use for firewood and maybe milling later in the future. So yeah, I feel like I'm making a good choice. Either way, y'all, yeah, we'll see how it goes, and I'll keep you updated on that whole situation. I may get a few more little clips of footage, and then I'll show the clip talking about the deck wheels shortly after. Hope you guys are doing well. God bless. What's up, guys? Hope y'all doing well. Sunday afternoon, get a little maintenance done. That's basically what I spent all day yesterday afternoon doing. Well, yesterday really, because it rained in the morning, wasn't able to do any work. I was hoping I'd be able to get some work done, but it was just too wet, so I ended up taking advantage of the opportunity I had in order to get maintenance done. So I ended up taking some tires that needed changed out on my Walker T23. Changed those out, as you can see. Nice new fresh tires. They were getting obviously worn out, so Justin was complaining about the traction on the heels. So went ahead and ordered them last week and took them yesterday to the tire shop. And the tire shop was nice enough to where they didn't even charge me for putting the new tires on there. They just asked me to do a Google review. So obviously I was more than happy to oblige. I also gave the guy a quick, gave him a $10 handshake. That was really nice of him to do that for me, and he's really nice. And yeah, I thought he deserved a little bit of a tip there since they didn't charge me, right? So I gave him a $10 bill. Changed the oil out, my C19, and my oldest laser over here. Got it changed out. It's got over 2,300 hours on it. It's worn out, but right now I'm actually, I already have. I wanted to show you, talk about it a little bit. So yeah, I just finished putting new deck wheels on one of my lasers. It's actually my second newest laser. I changed the oil out in yesterday. Or not yesterday, actually last weekend. Changed the oil out in it. And now I went through and I cut the wheels, the older wheels off, and I'm installing the new ones. So I'm just curious, do you guys think it's necessary to have the deck wheels on? Do you run your mowers with deck wheels? I don't think Ray uses them. I know he's mentioned in the past, he don't use them. Personally, for me, I prefer them to be on there, especially when it comes to cutting nicer yards with, the thick Bermuda, thick zoysia, especially if you have a yard or a property where you got some holes or some divots or some dips, that kind of thing. I think the deck wheels definitely come into play and are definitely necessary in order to avoid scalping the yard. Because if you hit a hole, or if it's uneven, unlevel, if you don't have deck wheels on there, it's definitely going to scalp it. Okay, so that's one reason why I like to keep my foot on the deck lift pedal here whenever I'm mowing. So if I feel that bump, or if I know it's coming, I got my foot ready to lift up on that deck to keep that from happening. But those deck wheels will definitely save you from really tearing into the ground, so to speak, if you hit one of those holes, those divots in the yard. So that's why I prefer to have it on there. Now, if I know I'm mowing a field, or a rough yard, or a weedy yard, or a yard where people don't care, I don't really worry about it as much. So typically I won't really worry about keeping nice new fresh deck wheels on my older Laser Z's, because that's how I prefer to use them. If I know I'm gonna be cutting a lot of rough yards, then I'll typically use my older ones. If I know I'm gonna be cutting some nice newer yards, I'll use my two newest ones. And this, like I said, this mower here has about 600 hours on it. It's probably about 3 or 4 years old, and obviously I got the new one I bought a little over a year ago that I like to use in the nicer yards, right? And I prefer to have those deck wheels on there. Now, one thing I've noticed, and we're gonna make some points about deck wheels themselves, the newer Z's, for whatever reason, the deck wheels don't run down or don't wear down as quickly as the two older models. I don't know why that is. I'm not sure if that's just because the deck sets up a certain kind of way on the newer ones. But yeah, these actually, this is the first time I've had to replace them. I may have replaced the middle ones, but I know the outside ones, went ahead and cut them all off. And I do prefer to cut them off, by the way, because even if you take those bolts off or the nuts, try to get the wheels off that way, usually they're still going to be stuck on there. So I just take my saw here with the Diablo blade, cuts through metal, and it cut right through them. There's a brand new blade there, so it's able to cut through that metal and just bang them off that way. I found it's a lot quicker than having to sit there and fiddle with wondering if it's going to come off if you just loosen the nut. If that makes sense. I'll just go ahead and cut them off with a saw. Found that saves time instead of fooling with, getting the bolt and the nut off. But anyway, personally I prefer to have the deck wheels on the mower, on the deck, because you want to guard against cutting unlevel. And if you hit that bump in the yard, it's definitely going to dig into it, so to speak. I mean, you can obviously smooth it out with a weed eater if you're, a good enough, experienced enough weed eater. You can kind of smooth things out a little bit, but you're still going to notice it, and it may cause certain areas of grass to turn brown too, especially if it's in the summer. So you want to avoid that. Now, I will say this in terms of the deck wheels themselves. These are all the OEM versions. I have ordered the cheaper versions off Amazon, the cheaper deck wheels, and they don't last near as long as these do. So in my opinion, go ahead and get the OEM versions of the deck wheels if you can, whether you order them off Amazon or, you know, at the dealership that you get your stuff from. Definitely recommend getting the OEM version. They're gonna last way longer, and I found that the Amazon version, even though they're a lot cheaper, I think this was like 45 bucks just for one, but you can obviously get them a lot cheaper on Amazon, but they wear out, the metal, the bolts, they'll break. I mean, it's just not worth it, to be honest with you. Even though they are a fraction of the cost, they just don't last near as long, near as durable. These will last a long time, especially on this mower. Like I said, I don't even know if I've even replaced them since I've had it. It's got over 600 hours, close to 600 hours on it. So yeah, go with the OEM deck wheels if you have a choice, in my opinion, based on my experience. Just go ahead and pay that extra money for them. I think you'll be happy you did. They're just way more durable. But anyway, just curious, guys. Y'all let me know in the comments if y'all prefer to have the deck wheels on your mower to guard against scalping and that kind of thing. Personally, I do, unless I know I'm mowing, you know, field-style yards or crappy, weedy yards where the people don't care. Then I don't really care as much about having those deck wheels on there. Let me know what you think. Talk to you soon.